Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the human flagship and watched the alien delegates argue. The same argument they had been having for 300 years. The Zentari Empire wanted the mining rights to the Kepler system. The Galactic swarm claimed those same rights belonged to them. Both sides had been fighting over 5 worthless rocks floating in space since before Jake was born. "Admiral, they are requesting human mediation again," said Dr. Lisa Carter, walking up beside him. She looked tired. They all looked tired, these. First, Jake sighed and straightened his uniform. "Same old story. They fight, we fix it, they ignore our advice, then they fight again next year." The council chamber was a massive dome that could hold representatives from all 12 major species in the Galactic Federation. Today, like most days, it was filled with angry voices speaking in dozens of different languages. The translation devices buzzed constantly, trying to keep up with the heated exchanges. Captain Ben Rodriguez of the HMS Pioneer sat in the human section, watching the chaos with disgust. He had been exploring new star systems for 20 years, but lately the council kept calling him back to help solve problems that should have been handled centuries ago. Chancellor Vex Thul of the Zentari Empire rose from his crystal throne. He was 12 feet tall with blue skin and 4 arms, and he liked to make sure everyone remembered how important he was. "The mining rights are clearly ours by ancient law," he declared in his booming voice. Queen Zixandra of the Galactic swarm buzzed, angrily, her insect-like wings fluttering. "Your ancient laws mean nothing to us. We claimed those systems first." Jake looked at Lisa and shook his head. The humans had already found a solution months ago. The Kepler system had enough resources for both species to mine different sections. They could share the profits and avoid war. Simple. But simple was not the alien way. "The human delegation will now present their mediation proposal," announced the council speaker, a floating brain in a glass case that belonged to the ethereal collective. Lisa walked to the center of the chamber carrying a data pad with their solution. She had spent weeks working out every detail, making sure both sides would benefit equally. "Honored delegates," she began, "humanity proposes a joint mining operation. The Zentari can take the inner planets, which have the metals they need for their technology. The Galactics can have the outer planets, which contain the organic compounds they require. Both species profit. No one fights. Everyone wins." The chamber fell silent. Jake thought for a moment that maybe, finally, the aliens would listen to reason. Chancellor Vex Thul laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Typical human thinking. You see everything as a simple trade deal. This is about honor, about ancient claims that go back thousands of years." Queen Zixandra's buzzing grew louder. "Humans always want to divide things equally. The universe does not work that way. The strong take what they want." Other delegates began to murmur agreement. The bird-like avians squawked about territorial rights. The plant-based Verdani rustled about resource allocation being more complex than human minds could understand. Jake felt his jaw clench. 200 years of this. 200 years of humans solving problems, preventing wars, keeping the peace, only to be told they were too simple to understand the real issues. Dr. Carter returned to her seat, her face red with embarrassment and anger. "They voted," she whispered to Jake. "They're installing AI arbitrators instead. Our mediation services are no longer required." "AI arbitrators?" Jake asked. "Computer programs. They think artificial intelligence will be more logical than human emotion," Lisa explained. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. "Computer programs to solve problems that require understanding feelings, culture, and history? Apparently we're too primitive to handle such complex matters," Lisa said bitterly. The final insult came when Chancellor Vex Thul stood again to address the council. "We thank the humans for their service over the years. They have been useful, pets always eager to please and help their betters, but now we must move beyond such primitive methods and embrace true logical solutions." Useful pets. Jake Morrison had served in the Federation Navy for 30 years. He had prevented 17 wars, saved millions of lives, and helped build the peace that allowed galactic civilization to thrive. And now he was a useful pet. He stood up slowly, The entire council chamber fell silent as the human admiral walked to the center of the room. His boots echoed in the sudden quiet. "Dr. Carter," he said without taking his eyes off Chancellor Vexthul, "please prepare a formal statement of withdrawal." "Sir?" Lisa asked, not sure she had heard correctly. "You heard me. Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Federation, effective immediately." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Some aliens laughed. Others seemed confused. A few looked worried. Chancellor Vexthul raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "Admiral Morrison, surely you cannot be serious. Where will humanity go? What will you do without the Federation?" Jake smiled for the first time in months. "We'll figure it out. We always do." Over the next hour, Dr. Carter read humanity's formal withdrawal statement. All human colonies, all human ships, all human citizens were leaving the Federation. Trade agreements were canceled. Defense pacts were void. Mediation services were terminated. Captain Rodriguez received orders to recall every human exploration vessel, every diplomatic ship, every trade convoy. Within days, human space would be completely separate from Federation space. As the last human representatives packed their belongings, Chancellor Vexthul approached Admiral Morrison. "This is foolish," the alien said. "You will regret this decision." Jake looked up at the 12-foot-tall alien leader and shrugged. "Maybe. But at least we won't have to listen to you call us pets anymore." The HMS Pioneer was the last human ship to leave the galactic capital. As they jumped to hyperspace, Captain Rodriguez sent one final message to the Federation Council. "Good luck sorting this out yourselves." Behind them, the Zentari Empire and Kolax Swarm immediately resumed their argument over the Kepler system, mining rights. The new AI arbitrators began calculating logical solutions that completely ignored 3 centuries of cultural and historical context. The universe was about to learn what it was like without humanity's help. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Federation. President Helen Brooks stood in her office on Earth, reading reports from across human space. The withdrawal was working better than anyone had expected. "The economic numbers are good," said General Chris Taylor, spreading papers across the president's desk. "Trade with non-Federation species is up 300%. Turns out a lot of people wanted to do business with us but couldn't because of Federation rules." Helen smiled as she read the reports. The Federation had always told humanity which species they could talk to and which ones were too dangerous or primitive. Now that humans were free to choose their own friends, they were discovering how wrong the Federation had been. Ambassador Nina Walsh entered the office carrying a thick folder. She had been traveling for months, meeting with species that the Federation called barbarians and savages. "The Torgan Republic wants to sign a defense treaty," Nina announced. "They've been fighting off pirates for decades with old weapons. We help them upgrade their ships, they share their mining technology with us." The Federation said the Torgans were violent warmongers, General Taylor remembered. Nina laughed. "The Torgans are farmers and engineers who just want to protect their families. The Federation lied about them because they refused to pay tribute taxes." President Brooks picked up another report. The Zephyrian clans, who the Federation claimed were primitive nomads, turned out to be master shipbuilders with technology that human engineers were eager to study. The Crimson Brotherhood, supposedly a gang of thieves and murderers, were actually traders who moved goods between systems that the Federation ignored. Everywhere humans looked outside Federation space, they found intelligent species who had been pushed aside or lied about by the galactic government. But while humanity was building new friendships, the Federation was falling apart. The first sign of trouble came from the Kepler system. Without human mediators, the Zentari Empire and Kolax Swarm had gone to war within days of humanity's departure. The AI arbitrators that were supposed to replace human negotiators had calculated a solution that satisfied neither side. The computers said the Zentari could have the mining rights on odd-numbered days and the Kolax could have them on even-numbered days. General Taylor explained, trying not to laugh. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," President Brooks replied. "Gets worse. The AI didn't account for the fact that different species use different calendars. The Zentari have 8-day weeks, and the Kolax have 12-day cycles. Nobody could figure out which days were odd or even. The war in the Kepler system spread quickly. The Centauri called in their allies from the Crystal Alliance. The Colacs asked for help from the Hive Collective. Soon, half the Federation was picking sides in a fight over mining schedules. Other conflicts that humans had been quietly managing for years began exploding across the galaxy. The thermal wars between the ice-world glacians and the desert-dwelling scorchers resumed after 40 years of peace. The trade route disputes that human merchants had been mediating through careful negotiations turned into shooting wars between competing shipping companies. Dr. Lisa Carter, now working as humanity's chief diplomatic advisor for non-Federation relations, watched the news reports from her office on Mars. Every day brought word of another Federation crisis that could have been prevented with simple human common sense. The Ethereal Collective just declared war on the Machine Republic, her assistant informed her. Over what this time? Lisa asked. The AI arbitrators ruled that organic beings cannot own digital property, and digital beings cannot own physical property. The Ethereals had to give up all their computer systems, and the machines had to abandon all their factories. Lisa shook her head. Humans had been helping both species share resources for decades. The Ethereals were living brains in mechanical bodies, while the machines were artificial minds controlling robotic forms. They needed each other to survive, but the Federation's new computer logic couldn't understand cooperation between different types of consciousness. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Rodriguez was having the time of his life exploring regions of space that had been forbidden under Federation law. His ship, the HMS Pioneer, had made contact with 17 new species in just 6 months. Captain's log, Day 183, he recorded. Today, we met the Wanderer fleet, a nomadic people who travel between galaxies. The Federation classified them as dangerous aliens and banned all contact. Turns out they're explorers just like us, and they have maps of star systems we never knew existed. The Wanderers had been traveling through the universe for thousands of years, collecting knowledge and making friends with whoever they met. They were amazed to learn that the Federation had been telling everyone they were invaders who destroyed planets. Your Federation fears what it cannot control, explained Elder Vash, the Wanderer leader. They told lies about us because we refused to join their government. Now we see that humans are like us, free spirits who value friendship over power. Captain Rodriguez shared human star charts with the Wanderers, and they gave him coordinates to regions of space filled with ancient ruins and lost civilizations. The exchange of knowledge was exactly the kind of thing the Federation claimed to support, but had never actually allowed. Back on Earth, President Brooks received an urgent message from the Federation Council. Chancellor Vexthul himself was requesting a meeting with human leadership. What does he want? General Taylor asked. He says the Federation is willing to discuss new terms for human membership. President Brooks read from the message. He's offering us full voting rights and equal representation on the council. The three leaders looked at each other and burst out laughing. 6 months ago, we were useful pets, Nina Walsh reminded them. Now suddenly we're equals? President Brooks composed her reply carefully. She thanked Chancellor Vexthul for his generous offer, but explained that humanity was too busy building relationships with their new friends to consider rejoining the Federation. As she sent the message, alerts began flashing on the communication board. More Federation conflicts were breaking out. The Galactic trade network was collapsing without human logistics coordination. Several colonies had declared independence rather than rely on Federation emergency services that took weeks to respond to disasters. The universe was learning what it meant to lose humanity's help, and humanity was learning what it meant to be truly free. Outside the President's window, ships from 12 different species docked at Earth's orbital stations. The planet that had once been just another Federation member world was becoming the center of a new kind of galactic community, one based on mutual respect rather than political control. The silence from humanity was speaking louder than any words ever could. 1 year after humanity left the Federation, Dr. Kevin Zhang sat in his new research station and watched the emergency broadcasts from the Thraxian homeworld. A deadly plague was spreading across their planet, and people were dying by the thousands, every day. The Galactic Health Authority had finally responded to the crisis after 3 weeks of meetings and paperwork. Their plan was to send medical supplies in 2 months, after proper safety protocols were reviewed and approved by 17 different committees. Kevin rubbed his tired eyes. When he had been part of the Federation health system, this kind of emergency would have been handled in hours, not months. Human medical teams would have been on the ground within a day, working with local doctors to stop the spread of disease. "Dr. Zhang, we have the analysis ready," said his assistant, Dr. Amy Johnson. She was one of 50 human medical researchers who had joined Kevin's independent operation after the withdrawal. The plague on Thraxia was similar to diseases Kevin had fought before. With the right treatment, it could be stopped in weeks. He had developed the cure working with the healing clans of Septimus, a species the Federation had banned contact with because they used primitive biological medicine instead of advanced technology. The healing clans understood how diseases moved through populations better than any Federation computer. Their treatments used living organisms that could adapt and change as the disease tried to fight back. Combined with human medical knowledge, they had created medicines that were far better than anything the Federation had ever produced. But Kevin was no longer part of the Federation health network. He could only watch as thousands of Thraxians died from a disease he could cure in his sleep. Commander Ashley Green stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the cargo vessels from 6 different species dock at the human trading station. In just 1 year, the station had grown from a small outpost to one of the busiest trade centers in the galaxy. "The Torgan ore shipment is 3 times larger than expected," reported her communications officer. "They found new mining sites using the equipment we traded them." Ashley smiled. The Torgans had given humans access to rare metals that the Federation had kept tightly controlled. In return, humans had shared their mining technology and helped the Torgans defend their space from pirates. "What about the Zephyrian ship designs?" she asked. "Engineering says they're amazing," came the reply. "Faster than anything we've ever built, and they use half the fuel. The Zephyrians want to learn our navigation systems in exchange." The trade relationships were working better than anyone had dreamed. Species that the Federation had called primitive or dangerous were sharing incredible technologies and resources. The galaxy was much richer and more advanced than the Federation had ever admitted. But while humanity prospered, the Federation continued to fall apart. Director Paul Mitchell received another emergency report from his former colleagues still trapped in the Federation system. The Galactic Emergency Response Network was collapsing without human coordination. "Hurricane season on Veldon Prime," Paul read to his staff. "Category 7 storms, entire cities being destroyed. The Federation response team is still filling out environmental impact forms." His assistant, Karen Davis, looked up from her computer. "When you were running the network, how long would Veldon Prime response have taken?" 6 hours for the first relief ships. Full evacuation support within 12 hours, Paul answered. "We had emergency supplies pre-positioned and response teams on standby." "How long is it taking them now?" Paul checked the report again. "The storms hit 3 weeks ago. The response team is scheduled to arrive next month, pending approval from the Disaster Relief Committee." The Federation had replaced human emergency coordinators with AI systems that required approval from multiple committees before taking any action. What used to be quick decisions made by experienced humans were now slow bureaucratic processes that took weeks or months to complete. Entire colonies had been lost to preventable disasters because the AI systems couldn't make the kind of fast, creative decisions that humans handled naturally. Captain Ben Rodriguez docked his ship at New Haven Station, the first major human settlement built outside Federation space. The station was a joint project between humans and 12 other species, designed using the best ideas from all of them. The result was incredible. The station could house 2 million people from dozens of different species, with separate sections designed for different environmental needs. The aquatic collective had underwater sections, while the crystal people had chambers that amplified their natural light-based communication. "Captain Rodriguez, welcome back," greeted Station Commander Tony Wilson. "How was the exploration mission?" "Found 3 more systems willing to join our alliance," Ben reported. "The stone giants of Petra want to trade their construction technology for our agricultural methods. The Skydancers of Nimbus need help defending against pirates in exchange for their weather control systems. Weather control? Tony asked. They can stop hurricanes, prevent droughts, even create rain on desert planets, Ben explained. The Federation knew about them for centuries but never bothered to make friends because they live on gas giant platforms instead of solid planets. The Free Species Alliance, as it was now being called, included over 200 different civilizations. Each brought unique knowledge and abilities that made the whole group stronger. Humans served as coordinators and diplomats, but every species was treated as an equal partner. Meanwhile, the old Federation was down to fewer than 30 member species. Wars raged across their territory as the AI arbitrators continued to make decisions that satisfied no one. The economy was failing as trade routes collapsed without human logistics management. Dr. Lisa Carter received a desperate message from her former counterpart in the Federation Diplomatic Corps. Ambassador Kexmill of the Stellar Alliance was begging for human help to prevent a war between the mining guilds and the transport union. The AI systems have calculated that the most logical solution is to eliminate either the miners or the transporters. The alien ambassador explained in his message. They cannot understand that both groups need each other to survive. Lisa sighed as she deleted the message. The problem was simple enough for a human child to solve, but the Federation had chosen computers over common sense. President Helen Brooks stood before the United Earth Congress, delivering her annual report on humanity's progress since leaving the Federation. In 1 year, we have formed alliances with 237 different species, she announced. Our trade volume has increased by 400%. Our territory has doubled. Our technology has advanced more in 12 months than in the previous 50 years. The Congress erupted in applause. Humanity had not just survived outside the Federation, they had thrived beyond anyone's imagination. But the real victory, President Brooks continued, is not in our success. It is in proving that the galaxy is big enough for everyone to succeed together, if they choose cooperation over control. Outside Earth's atmosphere, ships from dozens of species traveled in peaceful formation, carrying goods and people between worlds that had never been allowed to meet under Federation rule. The universe was discovering what humanity had always known, that diversity and freedom created strength, not weakness, and the Federation was learning too late what they had lost when they dismissed humanity as nothing more than useful pets. 2 years after humanity left the Federation, Fleet Admiral Rick Stone watched the massive construction project taking shape in the asteroid belt of the Alpha Centauri system. Ships from over 100 different species worked together, building the largest space station the galaxy had ever seen. The Torgan engineers say the main structure will be finished next month, reported his aide, Lieutenant Sam Parker. The Crystal people are installing their communication arrays, and the healing clans are setting up medical facilities that can treat any known species. Rick smiled as he watched a Zephyrian ship gracefully dock next to a massive Torgan mining vessel. 2 years ago, the Federation had kept these species apart, claiming they were too different to work together. Now they were building the future side by side. "What's the latest from Federation space?" Rick asked. Sam's expression grew serious. 7 major wars still burning, Admiral. The Zentari-Kallax conflict has spread to involve 15 different species. The AI arbitrators are recommending nuclear bombardment to end the fighting. Rick shook his head. Nuclear bombardment to solve a mining rights dispute that could have been settled with a simple conversation. The Federation had lost its mind along with its humanity. Dr. Maria Santos stood in her laboratory on New Geneva Station, examining the revolutionary engine design that had emerged from her joint research project with the Voidwalkers. The Federation had classified the Voidwalkers as extremely dangerous because they could travel between dimensions, but they turned out to be peaceful explorers who loved sharing knowledge. "Dr. Santos, the test results are incredible," said her research partner, Dr. Carl Davis. "This engine design is 40% more efficient than anything we've ever built, and it doesn't require the rare fuel that Federation ships need." The AI breakthrough was typical of what happened when different species worked together freely. The Voidwalkers understood dimensional physics in ways that amazed human scientists. Humans brought engineering skills that helped turn Voidwalker theories into practical technology. Together, They were creating miracles. How many species contributed to this design? Maria asked. 17 different civilizations, Carl replied. The Voidwalkers provided the dimensional theory. The Crystal People contributed their energy manipulation technology. The Stone Giants designed the structural components, and the Sky Dancers added their gravitational control systems. It was collaboration on a scale the Federation had never allowed. Each species brought their unique knowledge to create something no single civilization could have built alone. But while the Free Species Alliance celebrated their achievements, the Federation was falling apart completely. Chancellor Derek Collins, humanity's chief negotiator, sat across from a delegation of desperate Federation representatives in a meeting room on Earth. The same aliens who had called humans useful pets 2 years ago were now begging for help. Leading the delegation was Chancellor Vexthal himself, the Zentari leader who had insulted humanity at their last Federation meeting. The 12-foot-tall alien looked smaller somehow, his blue skin pale and his forearms trembling slightly. Chancellor Collins, the Federation needs human assistance, Vexthal said, his booming voice now quiet and strained. We are prepared to offer full membership with equal voting rights, seats on all major committees, and shared leadership of key Federation departments. Derek looked at the alien leader with calm eyes. That's very generous, Chancellor. What exactly do you need help with? Everything, admitted Ambassador Tlexandi of the Avian Republic. Our economies are collapsing. Wars are spreading across half our territory. Natural disasters go unmanaged for months. Our AI systems cannot handle the complexity of actual governance. The plague on Thraxia has spread to 47 worlds, added Coordinator Hivmesh of the Insectoid Collective. Our medical response has been completely inadequate. Millions have died from diseases that human doctors could have cured in days. Derek nodded sympathetically. That does sound difficult. What makes you think humans can help with these problems? Chancellor Vexthal's face showed confusion. Because humans always solved these problems before. The mediation services, the emergency response, the trade coordination, the diplomatic solutions. We didn't realize how much we depended on human management until it was gone. But I thought humans were too primitive to understand complex galactic politics, Derek replied pleasantly. Didn't you say we were useful pets who thought with emotions instead of logic? The silence in the room was deafening. The Federation delegates looked at each other uncomfortably, finally understanding the depth of their mistake. We were wrong, Vexthal said quietly. We see that now. Human creativity and adaptability were not weaknesses. They were exactly what held our civilization together. Derek stood and walked to the window, looking out at the bustling spaceport where ships from dozens of species came and went in peaceful cooperation. Chancellor, humanity appreciates your offer, but we've moved beyond the Federation's vision of how the galaxy should work. We've built something better. The truth was undeniable. The Free Species Alliance now controlled more territory than the Federation ever had, but through voluntary cooperation instead of political domination. Trade flowed freely between hundreds of worlds. Conflicts were resolved through genuine negotiation rather than AI calculations. Scientific advances happened at an incredible pace because knowledge was shared openly instead of being hoarded by government committees. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent alert. Lieutenant General Kate Murphy burst into the room with news. That changed everything. SIRS were detecting massive energy signatures at the galactic rim, she announced. Unknown ships, technology we don't recognize, and they're heading straight for the core worlds. Chancellor Vexthal went even paler. The Void Collective. We detected them 6 months ago, but our military computers said they were not a significant threat. How many ships? Derek asked. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Their technology operates on principles our scientists don't understand. Our fleets can't even scratch their shields. Admiral Rick Stone's voice came through the communication system. Chancellor Collins, we're reading the same energy signatures. This is bigger than anything we've faced before. Derek looked at the Federation delegates, then at the star charts showing the approaching threat. The alien fleet was headed directly for the galactic core, where billions of Federation citizens lived on heavily populated worlds. Chancellor Vexthal, You said your computers couldn't understand their technology? Our AI systems analyze their weapons and tactics, but nothing works. They seem to adapt to every strategy we try. It's like they were designed to fight against logical, predictable opponents. Derek smiled grimly. Good thing humanity doesn't fight logically then. He activated the Alliance Communication Network. All Free Species Alliance commanders, this is Chancellor Collins. We have a galaxy-wide emergency. Unknown hostile forces are approaching the core worlds. All Alliance members with military capability are requested to respond. The response was immediate. Ships from 200 different species began moving toward the threat, each bringing their unique technologies and fighting styles. The Voidwalkers prepared to use dimensional warfare. The Crystal People charged their planet-killing energy weapons. The Stone Giants readied their asteroid-moving technology for use as kinetic weapons. Chancellor Vex Thule watched in amazement as the largest military force in galactic history assembled in hours, not months. How is this possible? He asked. Because when you treat people as equals instead of subjects, they actually want to help you, Derek replied. The galaxy was about to face its greatest threat, but for the first time in centuries it would face that threat united, with humanity leading not through domination, but through the power of friendship and cooperation. The Federation had pushed humanity away, thinking they were expendable. Now, they were about to discover that humanity was the glue that held civilization together. 3 years after humanity left the Federation, President Marcus Johnson stood in the command center of Unity Station, watching the biggest space battle in galactic history unfold on the screens around him. The Void Collective had arrived at the core worlds with 10,000 ships, each one the size of a small moon. The Federation's remaining fleets had fought bravely, but their rigid military tactics were useless against an enemy that seemed to predict every move. Within hours, the Void Collective had destroyed half the Federation Navy and was moving toward the heavily populated inner worlds. President Johnson, Admiral Wright is requesting permission to engage, reported Communications Officer Lisa Chang. Marcus looked at the tactical display. Admiral Carol Wright commanded a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 500 species fighting together, each ship designed using technology shared freely between civilizations that had once been kept apart by Federation laws. Tell Admiral Wright she has full authorization, Marcus replied. And remind her that we're not just fighting for the Federation. We're fighting for everyone's right to choose their own future. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of the FSA Unity, a massive ship built using the combined knowledge of dozens of different species. The hull was grown from living Crystal People technology, the engines used Voidwalker dimensional physics, and the weapon systems combined human creativity with Torgan engineering and Skydancer energy manipulation. All ships, this is Admiral Wright, she announced to the 500 vessels under her command. Remember, the Void Collective has defeated every logical military strategy the Federation tried. That's why we're going to do something completely illogical. The battle plan was insane by Federation standards. Instead of forming organized battle lines, the Alliance ships scattered in seemingly random patterns. Torgan mining vessels equipped with planet cracker weapons charged straight at enemy dreadnoughts. Zephyrian scout ships used their incredible speed to dart between enemy formations, confusing their targeting systems. The Crystal People had turned 3 asteroids into massive flying weapons that pulsed with energy. The Stone Giants were literally throwing mountains at enemy ships using gravitational slingshots. The Healing Clans had somehow weaponized their biological medicine, creating viruses that ate through enemy armor. Dr. Alan Foster watched the battle from his research ship, studying the Void Collective's technology and looking for weaknesses. What he found amazed him. Admiral Wright, I think I understand how they work, Alan announced over the communication system. The Void Collective ships are completely automated. They're designed to fight against predictable opponents who follow standard military doctrine. That explains why they crush the Federation so easily, Admiral Wright replied. Federation AI systems are logical and predictable. Exactly. But our fleet is chaotic and creative. Their computers can't predict what we'll do next because we're making it up as we go along. The battle proved Alan's theory correct. Every time the Void Collective adapted to one of the Alliance's tactics, the human commanders would try something completely different. Captain Sandra Martinez used her ship's agricultural spraying equipment to blind enemy sensors with metallic dust. Commander Mike Thompson had somehow turned his cargo bay into a giant slingshot that launched explosive mining charges. The Void Collective ships began making mistakes. Their targeting systems couldn't handle the unpredictable movements of Alliance vessels. Their defensive programs failed when faced with weapons they had never encountered before, like the Healing Clan's biological warfare or the Sky Dancer's weather control technology. President Johnson received a desperate message from the Federation Council. Chancellor Vexthul was calling from his flagship as it retreated from a battle his forces couldn't win. President Johnson, we surrender our claim to leadership, the Zentari leader announced. If the Alliance can defeat this threat, we will accept any terms you offer. Marcus looked at the screens showing Federation worlds under attack. Billions of innocent people faced death because their government had been too proud to work with others and too rigid to adapt to new challenges. Chancellor Vexthul, we're not interested in ruling the Federation, Marcus replied. But we are interested in saving lives. Any Federation species that wants to join our alliance as equal partners is welcome. The offer was broadcast across Federation space. Within hours, dozens of species began abandoning the old government to join the Free Species Alliance. The rigid hierarchy that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years crumbled as its members chose freedom over control. The tide of battle turned when the Crystal People made a breakthrough discovery. By combining their energy manipulation with human computer programming and Void Walker dimensional technology, they found a way to disrupt the Void Collective's control systems. Admiral Wright, we can shut down their automated systems, announced Crystal leader Zexitara, but we need to get close enough to touch their command ships. How close? Admiral Wright asked. Physical contact. What followed was the most insane military maneuver in galactic history. Human ships used their superior maneuverability to get alongside Void Collective dreadnoughts while Crystal People teleported directly onto enemy hulls to plant disruption devices. The plan worked. One by one, Void Collective ships went dark as their automated systems failed. The massive fleet that had seemed invincible began drifting helplessly through space. But the real surprise came when boarding parties explored the disabled ships. The Void Collective wasn't a species at all. They were ancient war machines left behind by a civilization that had destroyed itself millions of years ago, programmed to eliminate any large organized government they encountered. They were designed to fight empires and federations, Dr. Foster explained to the assembled leaders. Rigid hierarchical civilizations that follow predictable patterns. That's why they couldn't handle our alliance. We're not a government at all. We're just friends working together. The war ended not with conquest but with understanding. The Void Collective machines shut down permanently when they realized that the Free Species Alliance didn't fit their programming parameters for a threat to be eliminated. In the aftermath, the galaxy was transformed. The old Federation survived, but only as a minor government controlling a small cluster of worlds. Most of their former members had joined the Free Species Alliance, which now stretched across 3/4 of the galaxy. President Johnson stood before the Alliance Council, a gathering of representatives from over 400 different species. Unlike the old Federation's rigid hierarchy, the Alliance had no single ruler. Decisions were made through consensus, with humans serving as coordinators and mediators rather than rulers. 3 years ago, humanity was dismissed as primitive and emotional, Marcus told the assembly. Today we've proven that emotion and creativity are not weaknesses. They are the foundation of true civilization. Captain Ben Rodriguez, now promoted to Admiral of Exploration, prepared to launch the largest exploration mission in galactic history. Thousands of ships would venture beyond the galaxy's edge, seeking new friends and new knowledge among the stars. The universe is vast, Ben announced as his fleet prepared to depart. And there's room for everyone to find their place in it, as long as we remember that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. The Free Species Alliance had grown from humanity's rejection by an arrogant government into a galaxy-spanning civilization built on cooperation and mutual respect. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together, Technologies that had been hoarded by governments were shared freely, and humanity, the species that had been called useful pets, had become the heart of a new kind of galactic community. Not through conquest or control, but through the simple recognition that everyone had something valuable to contribute. The galaxy had expected humanity to crawl back, begging for acceptance. Instead, humanity had shown them what they were missing all along. The universe was big enough for everyone to succeed together, if they chose friendship over fear. As the exploration fleets departed for unknown regions of space, carrying the Alliance's message of cooperation to distant stars, the galaxy looked toward a future brighter than any civilization had ever imagined possible.